teacher in me is like, I'm a very proud old teacher. I keep telling these three young people, so you're kind of in that gap between school and the next step, but you've done some remarkable things, and it's just an acceleration of that, right? And I think in our conversations, what I love is this idea of everything that you're doing and that you've done and that you've got notoriety for is actually acting in service of others. And before I ask you guys what you're working on or what you're proud of, I might sort of say, Will, like, let's cut to the chase. There are some people here that know you from one day, one moment in time. Do you want to talk us through what happened, what that was? And then we'll have a bit of a chat around it.
So earlier,
what did you do, Will? Tell us what you did.
I egged a racist senator earlier this year, and it blew up. Insane.
It's kind of cool. And in our chats, I mean, you didn't kind of go, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get super famous. In our chats, it was a circuit breaker. I mean, it's a big circuit breaker. What did you have to prove? Why did you need to do such a divisive action?
Well, I didn't need to do it. It just, I don't know, it just felt like the right thing to do, honestly. I don't know, I just did it. But in saying that, at one stage I was riding my bike down there and I was thinking, like, why am I doing this? But I kept riding. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just the climate change rally she arranged that I only found out today. I was there the day before and I was really riled up from that. And then I saw the shooting and then I saw what he wrote. And that was like a big, like, yes, like, we're making a difference. Oh my God, there's people dying. Why is this person saying this? And then, so it was just a big rile up. And the next day he was there. So I just thought, so definitely that passion transferred over to the next day as well.
Yeah, it was definitely, like in our chats, like Will was talking himself, not out of it, but looking for a reason. Like, give me a reason not to do the thing.
Oh yeah, I went there in mind to, like, I wanted him to apologise. If he had have apologised first off, I wouldn't have done it. I mean, I did have the eggs in my pocket, but I wouldn't have done it. I was looking for excuses to not do it. Like, yeah, and no, he just kept saying racist things.
Mm. And so it was like, this is unacceptable to you. Was the big key.
Yeah, you just can't, yeah.
Ooh. Reel it back, but I like, yeah, all right. Engage the rage. That was the teacher in me like, oh, hang on a moment. Oh. Yeah, all right. So with that whole idea of like, it's unacceptable, Ruby, you found just this gross consumerism sort of unacceptable. So I suppose it's a bit two-pronged there around, thinking about Will. He did a thing. You also did a thing. You stood up in public and said, here's my thing, and it was quite like, oh my goodness, that's a big deal. What do you care about and what are you celebrating at the moment?
That's a really good people.
We good?
I'm on now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What I'm celebrating at the moment, I've been back in Melbourne for about 2 years now, and over that time I've seen my passion and my hopefulness for the future just take a really long, slow plummet to the ground. And that's because I'm basically involving myself in a society and a world that I completely rallied against for a whole year, living in Bali in this green school that was made out of bamboo. It was so greeny. It was like a greeny cult, basically.
And you were part of a committee, even when you were in school, for a learning framework for 2030 with the OECD. So, I mean, that's as high up as it gets in terms of sort of systemic change in policy. Did you feel like they were listening, Ruby?
Yeah, that I have to be honest too. That was really the beginning of the climate depression sinking in. It's the bureaucracy, really. It's disempowering. It's completely unsustainable. I've noticed that student voices, youth voices are being tokenised in today's world, where we're starting to realise that we need to listen to these voices of the minority and the young people who, their future is in other people's hands. And that's becoming a serious issue in terms of our voices are being capitalised, it's being used just to make someone else look good, so then they can make a profit over that. It's not sustainable at all.
We'll hold on to that and come back to it, because I know you've also got some really sort of tangible advice and some asks as well. So we'll hold on to that. When you're talking about this sort of token youth voice, Ella, it's really hard to not take you seriously when you're like, I say so and so do 200,000 people behind me. And what I love in you bringing that strike for climate together, it was the school strike, and then you broadened that, didn't you?
Yeah, so
We on?
the strike on September 20 was a strike for all, and we set it to be business not as usual to make sure that we got everyone there, and that we wanted to empower the students, but it was more than the students. We need everyone on board. We need business owners to close for the hours that we were striking. We needed them to come along to the strike to support us, to rally with us. So it was definitely more than just students this time.
Nice.
And it's only growing.
And I look, I'm not a fan of making it an age thing, but let's step into what this panel is. You know, what do the kids have to say about all of this? It's basically what do clever people taking action have to say about all of this? It doesn't matter your age. But Ella, what year are you in at school?
I'm in year 8.
She's in year 8. So I remember being in year 7 and I was like worried about, you know, what do my eyebrows look like, and I don't know my locker passcode today, and you were like, I gotta get this done. You know, that first year of high school, when I think, if we remember back, it was just like probably a bit traumatic, right? I look back in that first, and you're thinking, well, I managed to get 200,000 people together. What else are you doing? Is that like job done? Are you done now, or are you working on something else?
Definitely not. We have some different events coming up soon. There's a next strike coming up. I'm also a volunteer for AYCC, which...
What's that?
The Australian Youth Climate Coalition. So we run campaigns specifically against corporate organisations and companies. And so I run a smaller group in the electorate of Macnamara with someone just a year older than me. And we have been joining in with AYCC, running a campaign against Origin Energy to stop fracking in the Northern Territory. We have campaigns against Stop Adani, which we won at the end of last year, Christmas present. Stop GHD. And recently also School Strike. Greyhound released that they were going to start working with Adani, and School Strike set up a campaign on a Sunday, and by Tuesday we had won that campaign without the help of the actual Stop Adani organisation. So we were pretty happy about that.
Yeah. Pretty happy indeed. Now, you're not working like against your school, because what I'm interested in, you know, Will and Ruby, Will's just finished school, Ruby's sort of 2 years out of school, you're like a year into school, and you got business to do. How is your organisation supporting that? And why I ask that question, Ella, is we might have lots of people here that are working in businesses or working in organisations and are like, yes, I want to be doing this stuff. How is your school supporting you or getting out of the way or helping you?
Well, at the start, I wanted to start striking and I needed to miss school to organise things, but having the conversation with the teacher, I'm not going to be here on Friday, I'm doing this, explaining why I'm not going to be there and the reason for it, they totally accepted that and started having conversations within teacher bodies, speaking at assemblies, speaking during the teachers' meeting every week, having the conversations why I was doing this and them starting to accept the reasons for that and taking it on themselves to support it.
Nice. So I'm going to ask you this question, then I'm going to jump over to Will again. But you've given us some insights in how you get other people to take action or care or listen. What are some really tangible ways that you get people to care as much as you care?
I think having genuine conversations with people, not using big examples, using your own life story makes a big difference. What's happened to me, I know this summer, I'm a very privileged person, and over this summer I was on a camp and we had to evacuate, and it was a bit of a traumatic experience for a lot of people as there were a lot of young children. And that affected me a lot, and that's why I had a cupcake stall.
They're delicious.
But sharing that conversation with people made people think that privileged people are being affected, and we need to acknowledge that. Also, not like the people that are less privileged have been affected the most, and that's not fair, but it is affecting everyone now, and it's past a tipping point.
You, actually, I'm going to hold that question and I'll go over to Will, because I know you've got more to say on that. Will, you got people to care by it was a tangible action, and there was heaps of media that came after that, but I know that there was a much deeper and a much kind of broader and a more powerful message of what you care about. And again, it's the voice of injustice. It's the voice of, we talked a lot about that sense of like Ubuntu. I am because you are, we are together. How do you get now people to listen? Have you leveraged what you did to get people to take action?
Yeah, I have. I've raised a whole lot of money on my Instagram. And I remember I set up, I did the 40-hour famine, and I set up a World Vision fundraiser, and it raised $5,000. And I was like, wait, what? People are actually like giving their money away on my Instagram. And then I traveled over to America and did another one. We raised $150, and then there's another $150 with Magda. So that's how I've kind of utilized it at the moment. But I want, as I said, I want to get that talking going, and hopefully people will listen to me. I'll just be myself, and if people want to like follow, then I don't know.
So it's the authenticity. It's authentically being yourself.
In my opinion, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely authenticity is massive. Yeah.
I'm going to flag something, because you can tell now how humble these people are. I'm a cheerleader, so I'm going to go hard. Like $500,000 was raised. I raised a couple of $1,000. $500,000 that has gone into Christchurch Foundation, that's gone into bushfire relief, that's gone into projects in Africa as well. And you glossed over it then. When we signed the thing with Magda Szubanski, you were just...
Yeah.
Can
Bloody legend,
give us
by
some
the way.
insights.
Oh yeah, so I met Magda at the Space Series convention, which was earlier this year. I don't know if you guys know Jules Lund, took me along. He's been a really good mentor for me. So that's like a passionate, inspired people who are non-conformist, who want to make a change in Australia. And I was not inspired then. And I didn't know what to do. Jules was like, come along with me, just see how we go. I met Magda there. I did a talk. Jules got me on the mic, and she came up to me, and that's how I met her. But that's really when the authenticity really rubbed in, because all these people were successful, as in happy and fulfilled, but they were also doing well off with their money. And I always thought that to do well off with your money, you had to climb over people, and it wasn't. They were being authentic. Their workplaces were built on empathy and helping other people, and the energy really rubbed off to the point where you could go up on stage, grab the mic, and just sing a song, and you wouldn't even judge. And everyone would be dancing around singing songs by the end of the night, every night. It was better than a music festival. They're not bad though. So, but yeah, so that's when I met Magda, and we kind of kept in touch. And then I was sitting at home hopeless when the bushfires were gone, and I wanted to do something, and I didn't know what to do. So I reached out to a few people, and she was one of the people that I reached out to. So yeah.
And I like that. Did you do that through social media, or is there other ways of keeping those connections strong? Pause Fest is very big on how we can connect with others, how we can have those authentic connections to do great work together. You've nailed that.
No, it was social media.
Social media. Nice. And Instagram is your platform of choice?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ella, is that Instagram's the platform of choice?
Yeah, and School Strike definitely uses that as a way, because younger generations use social media a lot. So if you're just reposting things, everyone sees it whether they want to or not. And that's how we...
Nice. Hot tip. I'll get more on the socials. Ruby, I'm always at Ruby like, where's your jar? Bring your jar. We need to get in front of this audience. Where's your jar? And the big thing for me is it's showing someone something really tangible, that it can be done. And you and I were working in a school, and if anyone was on Wednesday at the education panel, was anyone there? Oh, yay. Good to see you all again. We've actually got one of the brilliant teachers from that school. I'm going to put her in the thick. You can talk to her as well. But Debbie put together a sustainability conference for year 7, and we gave them all mini glass jars and a call to action, and that worked really well. So how do you get people on board? I know that you're more of a kind of go-to people in different ways, right? Yep.
I've noticed that over the years, I've started my project with a complete perfection mindset. So it's all about, I have to put every single piece of trash I create into that jar. It has to be completely perfect. I can't buy anything with plastic, which is actually incredibly hard to do. Once you see the plastic, you can't unsee it, and it's on everything. It's in everything, basically. And so I've noticed that the best way to get people on board is to be completely transparent and talk about imperfection. And you're moving towards a goal, and it's a journey, because we live in a world that's completely opposite. And everything is against us when we're trying to do good and challenge the status quo. Everything is against us. And so we have to embrace that imperfection and know that we need to constantly empower ourselves and know that we are doing the right thing. So transparency, imperfection, and also, like Ella and Will have said both, it's all about storytelling and having that connection point, because people see their own stories within your own, and that's how you make those human-to-human connections. It's all about connecting with each other, and that is truly the foundation of sustainability and creating sustainability.
So on that path of sustainability, it's not a buzzword, but it's a buzzword, right? It is something that we should be aware of, but it feels like there's a lot of talk of, yeah, we're sustainable. Are you? Yeah. We don't use pens. Like, okay. Go on, Will.
Didn't Woolies or Coles say they didn't use plastic bags, but then they sold plastic in their stores? Like, there's an example of that.
That's an excellent example, where there's sort of this then misalignment of what you think sustainability is and what I think it is, and then the general thing that as a business owner I also get frustrated around. I want to be, but I've got certain things that I need to do if I need to get on a plane and go somewhere, and it's kind of abrasive, so it's hard. So is it easy, and you said no before, to live like this, but what gets in the way? What makes it harder?
Well, as you're talking about sustainability, I just wanted to note for all of you, sustainability isn't just a term that describes environmental impact. It describes everything, the foundation of how everything should work. I like to look at it as a compass. So we have north, which is nature. We have east, which is economy, south, society, west, well-being. So all of those things need to work in a way that will sustain for something to be truly sustainable. So we need to think about that, especially about economy, circular economy, not the linear one. It's incredibly hard when people have not as much knowledge about what I'm talking about. I've noticed that I've taken it for granted, what I've been taught at Green School and the community I've been surrounded by. I've just taken it for granted and not really realised that the people back home haven't had that education at all. They do not know basically the foundations of climate science, how politics works, social science, all of that. They don't even realise that plastic is ending up in our oceans and therefore in our food chain. So it's small things like that that have bothered me, but have also made it incredibly inspiring and empowering to actually educate those people on those things, because then you start to see that education truly is the foundation of change.
You know how people say you can't diet full on because then you're just going to end up like going straight back to where you were after, but you've gone 100% out. Like, how did that work? Did you put specific things like routines that you did every day to help with that? Or was it just naturally feeling like more, because you were doing the right thing, you felt like inside it was the right thing to do anyway? Once you started doing it, like, you feel better. Like, how did it work?
Really good point. As my first year living as a minimalist with zero waste, It was like that. I just dived straight in, didn't even think about the transition, and that didn't sustain. It just made me so disempowered. I didn't feel like I was doing anything right. And when I couldn't do things right, it would just be like a whole panic situation. Like I'm preaching the wrong things. People think this of me, but I'm actually not that. And so it really is a transition. So starting small and then leading up to those bigger things. It's all about those little mindset changes, because you can't create a habit without slowly implementing it into your daily life.
You talk in your TED Talk, which is called...
Finding connection through minimalism and zero waste.
Fabulous. You can have a look at that on the YouTubes. You talk about how actually kind of socially it was a bit hard, particularly when you were coming back into Melbourne with things like, you're young, you want the latest fashion, it's thrown at you on Instagram. So socially it was a little bit tricky for you?
Absolutely. You have those conversations with everyday people, and they just not on the same level at all. There's no connection base really for that conversation. And so it's quite upsetting to see that what you believe in isn't a general belief of other people's. And it's all because of that lack of education.
Can't even go get a Zinger box.
What was that?
So tough. Can't go get a Zinger box.
Oh, yeah. Madness. So, Ella, in terms of that, like, Ruby's talked about how socially it was a bit of a challenge, and Will, I think you've touched on that as well. Tell me about how, I suppose, socially and navigating all those friendship groups and your first year of high school. How is your, really passionate belief system, and then obviously the actions you take, tell me about how that's been for you socially.
Like, some of my friends knew stuff about like what climate change was, and some knew like absolutely nothing. And I really enjoyed telling stories about what I had learnt from workshops I had done, and during that that was educating my friends. And September 20, which was our massive strike, I did get to bring quite a few friends, convinced a lot of friends to come along, but there are always people that are going to deny stuff. And there are people that there's no point arguing with if you know that they're not the right person to talk to, and that they've been told something or that's their belief, then there's no point arguing. Whereas there are people that you should talk to. There are friends that weren't sure about it. Their parents said, don't go. And having conversation with them, and then them having their conversation with their parents convinced them to go, and maybe affected how their parents would have voted regarding issues like climate policies. So it's just having those conversations. And definitely some of my friends still do not care, and it doesn't look like they're going to care anytime soon. And what I do doesn't affect them, and they'll just say, oh, whatever, I don't really care about that. And I'll go along to something, they'll be like, oh, why don't you go do that? Just come hang out with friends. Like, my priority is to do what I can and use my privilege in the right way. But I still have, like, the school strike team is very close, and it's a really supportive group of people. And within AYCC as well, it's a very supportive group. So you're surrounded by empowering people, which is really great.
Nice. It's good to find people who are, aligned or, kind of get the vibe and hang with them, right? So it'd be hard to do it alone. It'd be pretty impossible.
Yeah, you can't.
Can I ask, are you kind of a bit of a rock star in your school, or are there heaps of other kids that that are doing cool things? It might not be climate action, but they're taking action on issues that matter.
They're doing pretty cool things, but one of the Year 12s, who's actually currently the school captain, started organising the strikes pretty quickly after the Castlemaine strikers started striking in Australia, who were the first strikers. And she sort of set up an Enviro Club within my school and was Enviro leader for a while, and has passed that on to me. So I've taken the leader of co-Enviro captain with a Year 10 at my school. And And within our Enviro Club, we're set to join with Albert Park Kinder and Albert Park Primary, become a first carbon neutral education precinct, which is...
How good is that?
So, just yesterday I went with a couple of students from my school and a boy from Albert Park Primary who has been collecting all their stationery to go to the Albert Park Kinder, and they talked to us about what they're doing. The little kids showed us around their worm farms, their green cones, talked to us about their solar panels, how the solar panels power their turtle's tank. So working with them to become a carbon neutral education precinct, which is pretty exciting within the school. And our school head principal's very excited for that, although we just need him to actually take action and not just talk about it.
And how are you going to get him to do that?
Like putting forward what we need to happen and having conversations of this process of how that's actually going to happen and the steps we need to take to make stuff happen.
I love when we were chatting about this earlier. It's a partnership with students and parents and teachers. And what Ella has done is actually researched that once you sign this, we're then eligible for these tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants. So it's like, a trigger. So understanding that kind of point of what's going to kind of get your principal across the line. Yeah, it's nice socially. Yeah, it's a nice action to take. Economically, boom, like that's going to be your hitting point, right?
We had a Switch It Off campaign last year for 2 months. We had little posters that said switch it off, and we told at each assembly we were just notifying students to turn lights off, fans, heaters off when they weren't in classrooms and being used, and we saved like $6,000 just doing that. And that was like not much of our time and effort to actually do. And if we were to put that throughout the whole year, together with using solar panels, it just escalates everything to becoming carbon neutral.